Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadullah wa nasalli ala rasulil karim ba'd. The great legendary scholar Abu Hamid al-Ghazali rahimahullah once said that there are three main elements that shows what makes us fall in love with people. There are three things that we look at and we determine to decide who we fall in love with or what we fall in love with. And he identifies them in his book Ihya al-Ulum. And I mentioned these three things before. I'm not sure if anyone remembers. Who remembers any of those three things? And last year we had this class as well. Some of you were there. What's one thing everyone looks for? Physical beauty. Physical beauty. Physical attraction. Does that mean physical beauty? Just physical attraction. Some people like Subarus, right? But they don't look good, right? But some people like them because they have good horsepower. So the idea is there has to be some form of physical attraction to like something, or to an extreme level to love something or someone. Number two, the second element that every single person looks at, knowingly or unknowingly, is what? Characteristics, internal qualities. You can have the most beautiful car, right? It looks nice from the outside, or a house. It has a perfect structure externally. But you walk inside and there's mold on the walls. No one wants to buy a house like that. The car can look nice from the outside and the engine is dead. What's the point of a car if the engine is dead? What's the point of a beautiful person if we're dead internally? So Ibn Qayyim mentions that beauty is in two ways, inwardly and outwardly. Inwardly beauty is a person possessing good characteristics, as did the Prophet ﷺ. Inwardly beauty is manifested through the tongue. If a person's tongue is contained, if a person's tongue is controlled by him or her, that's a sign of their inwardly beauty. And if a person's tongue is not contained and it cannot be controlled, that's a sign of a person not being beautiful through his internal form of his heart. And external beauty is external beauty. So that doesn't need to be explained. So that's the second thing that we all look at. And the third thing we look at is what? How much the other person loves you back, right? And if the other person doesn't love you back, that's not called hub, that's called junoon. That's craze, that's craziness, that's Bollywood. It's not real, right? Love is when there's some type of reciprocalness, right? You love someone loves you back, that increases your love. How much the other person is ready and prepared to put themselves on the line for you. That has a big, that allows us to grow in our love for that person. What have you done for me lately? If you're not ready to put yourself on the line for me, why should I love you for? So he concludes his discussion by saying that if we were to take these three qualities and place them on our beloved Prophet ﷺ, we would find that he is at the height and the epitome of all of these three qualities. There is no one that is more beautiful in regards to their physical form. There is no one that possesses better internal characteristics than the Prophet ﷺ. And there is no one that put themselves in the line for another person more than the Prophet ﷺ. So if we love for these three reasons, then there should be not a person in the world that we love more than the Prophet. And that love, like many people get confused, that love doesn't have to be an emotional love. It can be a rational love. Right? So when the Prophet says that لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده لآخر الحديث, that you cannot be a true believer until you love me more than you love your families, your children. It's like, but how? Like, I love my children. I love my family. It's a rational love. What that means is if my son curses the Prophet, my son will hear it. Or he'll get it, right? Probably get it. If someone in my family who I truly love takes the Quran and drops it on the floor purposely, that's the end of that relationship. That's rational love. Even though we don't know it, we do love the Prophet more than everyone else. If someone in front of me mocks the Prophet's sunnah and I don't feel a sense of reverence and ghairah, a sense of what? Did you just say that? That means that the rational love is lacking. But truly, majority of us, hopefully all of us, even Muslims, people that are far from praying salat, they have this as well. And one of my teachers once mentioned that the people that may be the furthest from praying salat, if they hear someone speaking ill about the Prophet, they'll be the first people to stand up against them. So everyone has that rational love for the Prophet ﷺ, and that's a love we're seeking. Yes, for some people, that transfers and transitions into emotional love as well. But we're not expected to be at that level. The level that we're expected to be at is that there should be no one that can mention anything negative about our Habib and we don't get affected. There should not be anyone that can speak ill about Sahabas and we don't get affected. There should not be anyone that mocks anything about the life of the Prophet. Either it be the marriages of the Prophet ﷺ, either it be how he dealt with people, and we don't get affected. That's the end of a relationship for me. You spoke ill about my Prophet, khalas man, it's done. That's rational love. So we do love the Prophet more than anything else, and we didn't even know about it. We do. So nonetheless, he mentions that if we take these three qualities and place them on the Prophet's life, we will love the Prophet more than anyone else. Rationally for sure, and hopefully one day emotionally as well. So Shama'il is the process. Okay, what's the difference between Shama'il and Sirah? Anyone know? This is a small class, not supposed to be a Sirah class, so I can ask questions. Go ahead.
Sirah is like more about his life.
Yeah, good. Sirah is a timeline. Sirah is a timeline from the beginning of his life all the way to the end of the life of the Prophet. Shama'il are the characteristics, the qualities, the habits of the Prophet. And there is no way in the world a person can read the Shama'il of the Prophet and not fall in love with him. Because it covers every single aspect of his life, up to the extent of how the Prophet used to eat, how he used to walk, how he used to sit with his grandchildren, how he used to spend time with his wives, how he used to spend time with the enemies. So Shama'il is a complete depiction and an imagery of the Prophet's daily life. Not an entire timeline and a time lapse, but his daily life and the characteristics that he made habitual within himself, not just one-time things, right? One-time things you find in the seerah, but the things that became habits, they were adat, they were qualities that he made an effort on, and they didn't become sunnah per se, because they were specific to them or to him, but they're qualities that if we look at, we can understand why we should love the Prophet ﷺ, and hopefully we can adhere to internalize some of those qualities as well. So, Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah was the first scholar that actually wrote about the Shama'il. He made an effort and he put it together, and that's the book that we use. I'm not going to speak much about that, we don't have much time. We only have 40 minutes, and I don't think that's that important for us anyways. So, my topic that I have today is the physical beauty of the Prophet, right? The physical beauty of the Prophet ﷺ, and obviously this is perhaps something we've already heard about, but you can never hear about it enough. So the hadith goes that Hassan radiallahu anhu came to his uncle Hind Abi Hala, and he asked him that, "Oh my uncle, can you describe my grandfather to me? Because the Prophet passed away when I was 7 years old, and I don't remember much of him, his physical description or how he was. I want to know how he was." Hind Abi Hala was known, وَكَانَ وَصَّافًا. He was a person that could meticulously describe a person as if you can see him, right? Some people can do that, some people can't. Like, how did that person look? Well, had 2 eyes, had a nose, right? Oh, he had a big turban too, right? So some people are good at it, like aunties, right? Like khalas, like they describe someone to the exact detail. Like, well, that's too much. We don't want to know that, right? So he goes to his uncle and he asks, "Can you describe my grandfather to me as if I can see him? I miss my grandfather." This is a beautiful narration which stretches over 3 pages. So we're not going to go over the entire thing. We're going to speak about the specific description of the Prophet ﷺ and not the other details. He starts off by saying, okay, when you ask someone to describe somebody else, you start off with the greatest quality, right? Like, for example, if I come to you and I say, "Hey man, can you describe Muhammad, or no, can you describe Ali to me?" Right? Not radiallahu anhu, Ali, if there's Ali sitting here, or Fatima. You'll start with the quality you'll start with their strongest trait if you want to make them sound good. And if you don't want to make them sound good, Like, yeah, that person, don't even ask me about them. But if you want to make them sound good, you'll start with their strongest trait. Dr. Saab, right? Or like, or Sheikh Saab, or that person is so generous, or that person is so kind, or that person has a big heart, or that person is so forgiving. If you want to make them sound good. Well, without a shadow of a doubt, the Prophet ﷺ was at the epitome of every good quality a person could ever have. And he was the furthest from any negative quality that a person could ever possess. So which quality do you start with? He was the most generous, he was the most kind, he was the most forgiving. So it's a very difficult task to describe the Prophet. But this man starts off with a very specific quality, and he says, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فخما مفخما. The Prophet ﷺ was a man who was naturally noble, meaning he would not have to force his respect or his reverence upon people. Him being him was enough. Him sitting there would create love in the hearts of people. Him walking would allow people to look at him. Him just being there would bring love in the hearts of the Sahabas for each other. Fakhman. There was no forcefulness within his respect. He didn't tell people, respect me. There's not a single narration within the collection of our hadith where the Prophet tells Sahaba to respect him, where the Prophet tells Sahabas to stand up for him. But rather on the contrary, the Prophet would tell Sahabas not to stand up for him. How is it possible where Bedouins would come into the gatherings of the Prophet and they would have to ask, who is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Who is Muhammad? Because Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not force it. Now, this is not a part of the physical beauty, so I won't speak about it in detail. But the second part is equally important, which is mufakhama. Mufakhama means, how was it possible for the Prophet to become a man that demanded respect without asking for it? Which demanded honor without asking for it. He never said, respect me, but when he was there, everyone respected him. He never said, honor me, but trust me, no one spoke in front of him. He never said, stand up for me, but whenever he would walk, people would look down. So without asking for it, his mere presence was enough to demand the honor and the respect of the people. How is that possible? It's a very simple formula, and it will work for every single one of us. Give respect, you will be given respect. Give honor, you will be given honor. Be generous, people will be generous to you. Be forgiving, people will forgive you. The Prophet was a man that honored people. He gave respect to Sahabas. Mufakhama meant that the Prophet was a person that not only was he honorable within himself, but he would use all the God-given qualities that he had to make others more honorable. Bilal, you were a person in Mecca that was put under a rock and humiliated in front of the entire city. Bilal, you will become the only person to stand on top of the Kaaba to give adhan. Giving respect to people. In our societies, within all of us, even myself, to praise someone, it feels like we're taking away from ourselves. How can I praise somebody else? I'm probably better at that. Like, it's so hard to find compliments. When was the last time I complimented someone without an incentive? Without an incentive. Not your boss, not your parents, not your spouse, right? Non-incentivized compliment. That you saw a person, and it goes a long way. I was in Houston 3 months ago, and a person came up to me after Jum'ah Salah, and he said, Sheikh Saab, do you remember me? I said, I don't remember you. I act like I do, but, do you remember? I said, I remember your face. I didn't remember his face either. But I said, you can get away with that, right? If I did that to you guys, please forgive me too. Like, I remember your face, but I don't remember your name. He said, oh man, you don't remember me? I was, last time you came to Houston, you met me and you complimented something and he was so happy. I was like, what did I compliment you about? Like, I didn't even remember. He said, I was taking my elderly father outside the masjid, and he was on a wheelchair. So as I was pushing him, you came to me, you were next to me, and said, man, I don't remember saying it, but I said to him that what you're doing right now is a direct shortcut to Jannah. Continue doing it. right? And he said, that never left me. I mean, I don't even know why I said that, right? But people are stingy with compliments. Like brothers can't praise each other. Siblings can't praise each other. Like friends can't praise each other. In all of our praise, when we do praise, it becomes maddahun. And we're not maddahin. We don't want to become maddahin. Maddahin means you praise beyond the need. Like you walk into someone's house and you talk about how good the house looks for 10 minutes. You don't need to do that. You eat someone's food, you talk about how good the food is for 5 minutes. The Prophet wasn't he actually taught us not to be maddahun. Walk into someone's house, MashaAllah is what we say. We eat someone's food, Allahumma at'imana at'amana, wasqi man saqana. Overly praising someone's food is also wrong. Of course, taking out flaws is also incorrect. So, mufakhama meant the Prophet was a person who found ways to put himself in other people's shoes so he could feel with them and he could make them feel honorable in whatever situation they were in. Not that, the only Sahabas I will deal with is Abu Bakr and Umar. Every Sahaba in the Prophet's gathering felt as if they were the most beloved to the Prophet ﷺ just because how the Prophet would look at them. How the Prophet would some Sahabas had one conversation with the Prophet, but they still felt beloved because that one conversation held value for them. It gave them something, right? Nonetheless, fakhman mufakhaman was the first description, but it doesn't have to do with the physical beauty. So that's the limited detail I will go into. But I will say this: generosity doesn't just mean giving people money. Generosity means mufakhama, giving people whatever you have. And if you don't have anything, you have time. If you don't have anything, you still have a smile. If you don't have anything, you still have your tongue. That's good enough, right? Praising people and controlling your tongue. The Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, Uqba ibn Amir, he said, "O Prophet of Allah, give me advice and keep it very short because I don't have much time." Imagine someone coming to you and saying, "Hey man, I want you to give me advice, but keep it short." Brother, you came to the wrong brother. You came to the wrong person. The Waheed brothers don't know how to give short advice, right? Sheikh Ishtiyaq is very good with time, right? He's sitting in the back. He can give you advice in one sentence. It will last you an entire year. Us will be whole bayan. Like you start with this. Nonetheless, the Prophet ﷺ was Jawami al-Kalim, and he said three things, lasting advice. He said, number one, kufa an lisanik, control your tongue. Number two, wal yasa'a baytak, man, feel comfortable in whatever Allah has given you. Wal yasa'a baytak literally means wasi'. Wasi' even in Urdu means like vast, wide. Make your house big enough for you. What does that mean? Anyone? Like, you guys want to give some tafsir? All right? Have any opinions? Right? One day I walked into a masjid in Michigan and there were like elderly people holding a Bukhari and they're like, "What do you think about this hadith?" I'm like, "Man, that's the right way of doing it." Right? Nonetheless, wal yasa'a baytak means that don't look at what others have. Make your house, your family, your car, your blessings should be enough for you. لا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا بأزواج منهم. Right? We say that, what a scholar once said, that we're not sad because we don't have, we're sad because why does the other person have? So if we just avoid looking at what other people have, we won't be sad. Right? وَلْيَسَعَ بَيْتَكَ. And lastly, وَابْكِي عَلَى خَطِيئَتِكَ, cry over your sins. The Prophet says, خَصْلَتَانِ مَنْ كَانَتَا فِيهِ كَتَبَهُ اللَّهُ شَاكِرًا وَصَابِرًا. Two qualities that if a person has, Allah will always keep him grateful and Allah will always keep him patient. Two qualities that we always need. In our life, either we're grateful or because of a blessing, or either we're struggling, so we need patience. So the Prophet says, if you have these two qualities, these two states will be perpetual with you. They will remain with you. Two qualities. Number one, مَنْ نَظَرَ فِي دِينِهِ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ فَوْقَهُ. An individual that looks at those that have more progression in deen than them. Not that, hey man, that person just prays Jummah, at least I pray Fajr. Or, we're in Columbus and we walked into a store and the brother was a Muslim and he was selling liquor, right? So, we don't judge no one. We walk in, we don't even speak about it. Like, I don't even address the fact that what he's selling is haram. We just go in, we're talking to the person, and he says to me, Sheikh, don't judge me. I'm not that bad. The guy next to me, he sells liquor and pork. Right? I'm like, yeah, that's a good logic, right? So the idea is that if we continue looking at those that have less than us in deen, we'll continue patting ourselves on the back. Good job, man, good job. The Prophet is saying, look at those that are in front of us in deen. I pray in the masjid once in a day, alhamdulillah, but that brother or that sister does it twice. I got to get to that level. Right? That person is always smiling. How can I always be smiling? That person is always dealing with adversity, but yet they're so happy. Looking at people that are in front, that are not at our level. Because if we're not progressing, dear brothers and sisters, we're regressing. There is no such thing as being at the same level. Complacency is a brother of shaitan, right? Abu Dharr al-Ghafari radiallahu anhu said, a person that is lazy is a person that is dead, and the only difference between him and a dead person is that he still has a soul, because he's lazy, or she's lazy. So, number one, looking at those that are beyond us, it doesn't mean that we have to become like them, but we identify that there are people that are better than us in deen. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. And there will always be people that are better than us in deen. Always. We're never at the highest level. Number two, مَنْ نَظَرَ فِي دُنْيَاهُ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ دُونَهُ. Looking at people who have less than us in dunya. Right? I just came back from Pakistan, and truthfully, I benefited so much. Not because I like Pakistan, right? It's all right. It's a third world country after all, but it's beautiful. It's home in many ways. You see people surviving off so less. It's unbelievable what people do to survive. And we're like sitting in America, just chilling, and we're complaining about the AC is not as high as I want it to be, right? Or the food is a little too cold, or the food is a little too bland, or the food is a little too spicy, or like, really? Right? مَنْ نَظَرَ فِي دُنْيَاهُ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ دُونَهُ. Man, there's people in our countries, in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Syria, Palestine, wherever we come from, just go back home. You don't have to watch the videos on YouTube or Facebook. Just go back home, drive in a street, and you see people selling we call it badam, like almonds for a living. That's their entire living. They stand there from the morning all the way till 2 a.m. selling almonds. And they're making less than 3,000 rupees in a month, which is hardly how much? $20. And they're surviving with an entire family. That's normal. مَنْ نَظَرَ فِي دُنْيَاهُ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ دُونَهُ. As long as we look at people who have less than us in dunya, it is not possible for us to become ungrateful. If I don't have a nice car, well, at least I have a car, right? Like nowadays, I normally like to drive nice cars, but for the last 6 months, I've been driving like a 2002 Honda Accord. It's one of the most humbling experiences in my life, right? I'm like driving into a talk in a conference, man, I hope I don't see my car, right? I drove in a Sierra Intensive, I parked all the way in the back, right? But really, at least I have a car. People don't have cars. People in Pakistan, in our countries, they're using donkeys to be taken from place A to place B. People, oh man, I didn't get business class in this flight. Bro, you're flying, man. What's wrong with you? So gratitude it doesn't happen because of how much we have. It happens because of our perspective. And if we live in communities, and if we live in societies, or even in families in which we're always talking about people, well, we won't be grateful. If my discussion within my friend circle is always about people, that's a very fragile discussion. That's a very weak form of a relationship. Talking about people, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah once said, small people talk about people. Small people talk about people. Medium people talk about things. Things. Cars, sports, houses, they're not small people, but they're not great people either. They're average people. Average. Great people talk about ideas. They talk about change. They talk about transformation. They talk about how to revolutionize my house, not the whole world. My household. How can I change my sister? How can I help my brother? How can I help my son? That's all they're thinking about. And of course, then you start thinking about your community. But don't think about the entire world. Start قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ. Start with your own family. So great people think about ideas and talk about ideas. Average people, like many of us, like including myself, we talk about things a lot. Small people talk about people. Like there's no benefit in talking about people. Nonetheless, that was the quality which he started with. So it shows that perhaps he felt that this was one of the greatest traits of the Prophet ﷺ, because again, Ibn Qayyim mentions that you can never, and I'll mention this and I'll go to the beauty part, you can never affect someone if you're impressed by their dunya. And I truly mean this. Like, you can never affect someone if you are impressed by what they have in dunya. If you are impressed by what they have in the akhirah, it's perfectly fine. If I walk up to, I have a sunnah, and it's a sunnah of mine that I've had for a long time, and people that know me would know this. I never ask anyone what they do for a living. Right? And if anyone knows me, they know that I've never asked them. Like, in my Hajj group, I was with these people for like 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, they're like, Sheikh, man, you never asked us what we do. I was like, I don't care what you do. Because if I ask you, and your answer is that, I drive this, you may feel bad, even though it doesn't affect me. And if you say, I'm a scientist or I'm an, whatever you are, I'm a billionaire, it may affect me. So rather than affecting any of us in a negative way, I'm not even going to ask what you do. Malcolm X once said, if people ask what you do, they don't respect you for who you are, they respect you for what you do. They don't respect you for who you are, right? So it's my sunnah person, like who cares what you do? I respect you for the fact that you're a believer. So fakhman mufakhama. And he ended off the entire discussion speaking about a few more qualities of small people, but we'll leave that for another day, inshallah. He continues saying, speaking about the beauty of the face of the Prophet ﷺ, يَتَلَأْلَأُ وَجْهُهُ تَلَأْلُ الْقَمَرِ لَيْلَةَ الْبَدْرِ. And I'll finish this in 15 minutes, inshallah. The physical beauty of the Prophet. He says that the face of the Prophet ﷺ, it was as radiant as the moon, and it used to shimmer like the moon. It had the glitter and the glamour of the moon. One Sahaba by the name of Ja'far radiallahu anhu, another narration, Jarir ibn Abdullah, they said that we walked outside of our house, and we saw that on the 14th night the moon looked oh so beautiful. And we thought to ourselves that the Prophet is so beautiful. What's more beautiful, the moon or the face of the Prophet? It's a very famous narration. And he continued debating with himself in his mind until he said to himself that, let me just go look at the Prophet and let that decide for itself. I came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he was praying in the haram, and he had a red shawl around his shoulders. And I looked at the Prophet and I examined him and I compared him to the beauty of the moon. And it did not take me a long time to recognize that there was no comparison between the beauty of the Prophet's face and the moon. Right? Wallahi inna wajha an-nabiy sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ahsana min al-qamari laylat al-badr. That I promise to you that the face of the Prophet was more beautiful than the moon on the 14th night. Right? There was absolutely no comparison. And there are many narrations of Sahabas which discuss that same point. Hassan ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu would say, لو لم تكن له آية مبينة لكان منظره يأتيك بالخبر. Which means that if the Prophet ﷺ sat on a chair his entire life, imagine if Shaykh Abdullah sat here for 7 hours and didn't speak. Like, first of all, there would be no one sitting here, right? And everyone's going to leave. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, if the Prophet sat on a chair his entire life and did not say a single word, لَكَانَ مَنْظُرُهُ يَأْتِيكَ بِالْخَبَرِ. Just by looking at him, you would know he's a prophet. That's how beautiful he was. Ibn Ishaq rahimahullah, the first scholar of Seerah, he mentions that more than 33 people became Muslim just by looking at the Prophet's face. Not a single word, just by looking at his face. Right? Just by seeing him. There's narrations about Tufail ibn Amr al-Dawsi of when he walked into Mecca and he saw the Prophet from a distance and accepted Islam. The narration by Abdullah ibn Salam, when the Prophet came to Medina, he came to the Prophet and he saw him from a distance, and he was a Jew rabbi. And after examining the Prophet from a distance, he came to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, I want to accept Islam. He said, why do you want to accept Islam? You and your crew are against me, the Jewish rabbis. So, O Prophet of Allah, I was watching you for a few moments, and your face cannot be a face of a liar. This is the face of a prophet. So the prophet was physically, his face was physically beautiful. Now, how was it beautiful, right? One is to say it's beautiful, but how was it beautiful? What do we look at? What do we look at in a person's face to determine that they're beautiful? Let's start off with the eyes. How would, and you guys can write this down. We'll do every single limb of the Prophet's body. The Prophet's eyes. The riwayat Ma'bad radiallahu anha says that رأيت رجلا ظاهر الوضاء مليح الوجه حسن الخلق لم تعبه ثجلا ولم تزري به صعلة قسيم وسيم في عينيه دعج. His eyes were of a strong contrast. What does that mean? Anyone? What does that mean? Yeah. His black was excessively black and the white was very apparent. I mean, to anyone in the right mind, that's beautiful, right? And the Prophet's eyes, Salma narrates in the narration, and it's also mentioned over here, they were more so olive-shaped rather than being a round shape. So they were large, right? They weren't small eyes. And in order for the white to be apparent, that means your eyes have to be big. But they were not overly large that they look like, okay, it's too much, right? Like, no names. But nonetheless, the Prophet's eyes were large, the black was excessively black, the white was immensely white. Okay, what's next? What else do we look at? The nose. The Prophet's nose, at a distance, I'll ask you guys what you guys want to know about from the Prophet's face and I'll answer it. The nose, from a distance, a person would perceive it to be long. But when they would come closer, they would notice it to be a normal size, but it wasn't a nose that was flat. It was a nose that was not long, but closer to the lengthier side. Right? In the hadith mentions that it was a nur on his nose that would come off his nose, and people would think because of that nur, his nose was extra large. But his nose was not extra long. It was a normal size, but it was not short. Neither was it flat. He didn't have a flat nose, he had a lengthier nose, right? And it had a shimmer or a shine. I mean, I'm not sure if anyone has a nose like that, but that's the nose of the Prophet ﷺ. Anyone, what's next, quickly? Cheekbones. Cheekbones. That's interesting. His cheekbones, right? I thought about that one. It's actually mentioned in this hadith that he mentions about the cheekbones that they were very apparent, right? And his mouth was large. Mouth being large wasn't a sign of being unattractive. The mouth being large was a sign of being eloquent. That the Prophet could speak with eloquence, and his teeth were not clustered together. The hadith says that there were spaces between his teeth, right? His front two teeth. But that also doesn't mean that there was like a big space between his teeth. Like, no. It means that the Prophet's teeth were not overly clattered, right? They were not clustered. There was space between each tooth. So the Prophet's teeth were not like, he didn't need braces. For an easier way to understand it, right? So his cheekbones were high and they were very apparent. Of course, we also know it's a sign of beauty. What else do we have, quickly? His facial hair? Sorry? Face shape. His face shape was not round. But it wasn't narrow. But it was more of you could also say again, an olive-shaped face. It wasn't a round face. It wasn't a plump face. And again, there's no way we can look like the Prophet ﷺ. It's like, if I'm sitting here like, man, I don't look like the Prophet at all, man. My eyes are different, my face is different. That's not the point. The point is, we know that's beautiful. So we love it. And because of that, we love the Prophet ﷺ. That's the only purpose of speaking about it. Not to say, oh my God, how can I look like that? Right? No, that's not the purpose of it. So we got so how about what else is left? The eyebrows. The eyebrows, right? The Prophet's eyebrows, she mentions that the eyebrows were naturally separated and they were arched, right? They were not bushy eyebrows. Naturally, it looked from a distance as if the Prophet's eyebrows were not natural. But when you would come closer, you would notice that the eyebrows were natural. He had beautiful eyebrows, like something so small. But the Prophet ﷺ had the best of even those things. How about the forehead? The Prophet's forehead was big. Yeah, big forehead is a good thing, right? The Prophet's, there was something behind the forehead, right? Wasn't hollow. The Prophet's forehead was a sign of his geniusness, him being a genius. He was the smartest person to walk on this earth, right? So the large forehead wasn't excessively large again, but it was larger than a normal person's forehead, and it was a sign of intelligence and a sign of wisdom. What else do we have left? Huh? His hair. Before hair. How about his cheeks? His cheeks. Like literally, man. It's what you would draw up as a beautiful person, right? The Prophet's cheeks were naturally rosy, right? They had like a rosiness to it. So you wouldn't need any, external means of making his cheeks look rosy. Akhal, his eyes, it was as if his eyes always had kuhl, but there was no kuhl, right? There was no like what we would call mascara or eyeliner. It was natural. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it or do whatever you want to do, but the Prophet naturally had it, right? And there was some narrations it also mentioned the Prophet would have some redness in the whiteness of his eyes, right? So that means that's a sign of the Prophet crying through the night. That's why that narration was mentioned. So that's the Prophet's cheek. The Prophet's lips, right? There were also the Prophet's lips were very apparent, right? They were not, that also you can come to the conclusion about the Prophet's lips speaking about his mouth, right? They were larger, but they were not, nothing of the Prophet's body was excessively large. It was very moderate. Right? Hassan ibn Thabit says about the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet walked into Medina, he says, and this is a lengthy story which we can't go through, but just the poem itself is beautiful. The Jews of Medina came to the Prophet, to Hassan ibn Thabit, and they said, "Oh Hassan, when the Prophet walks down this hill, he's taken over the respect of our community, and he's become the main man. Like imagine, you run that house, and someone walks in and takes over. So say something about him that people look at him in a negative way." So Hassan is standing there, and he's looking, and he's waiting for the Prophet to come down. He's preparing his rhymes and his taunt towards the Prophet, right? The Prophet walks down. No one can taunt the Prophet. No one can. And this is why, if even non-Muslims learn about the Prophet's life, even they'll have to shut their mouth because the Prophet's life was too beautiful and his body itself was too beautiful. He says, لما رأيت أنواره سطعت وضعت من خيفتي كفي على بصري خوفا على بصري من حسن صورته فلست أنظره إلا على قدري روح من النور في جسم من القمر كحلية نسجت من الأنجم الزهري. He says, as soon as the Prophet walked down from the hill and I looked up to say something negative about the Prophet, I saw his beautiful face, and as soon as I saw his beautiful face, وضعت من خيفتي كفي على بصري, I took my palm and I covered my eyes. Right? Why did I cover my eyes? We look away because it doesn't look good. What the heck is that? Right? Why did he look away for? خوفا على بصري. Right? Which literally means I was afraid that if I was to look at this man for even a moment longer, perhaps Allah will snatch my eyesight away. فَلَسْتُ أَنظُرُهُ إِلَّا عَلَى قَدْرِ. But the man was so beautiful that I couldn't stop looking. So I would look away. I said, no, I want to look at him more. And I would look back. Oh man, so beautiful. And I would look away again, and I would look back. Right? Anas ibn Malik says, radiallahu anhu, that whenever the Prophet would sit in front of us and he would give us any form of an address, every single one of us would have two conflicting thoughts in our mind. One, what is it? Anyone? One is what? Look at the Prophet. Right? Imagine the Prophet sitting in front of you. One is to look at the Prophet. The second was, I can't look at the Prophet, he demands too much respect. He has reverence. So what we would do is whenever the Prophet would look away, look at him. Right? And when he would look back at us, look down. Right? Just to get a glimpse of his portrait. Just to get a glimpse of him. Anas ibn Malik says, whenever the Prophet would walk into the masjid, there would not be a single person that would dare to look up at the Prophet. Fakhban mufakhama, we spoke about it. He never said respect me, but he demanded respect. He never said honor me, but he demanded honor. How did he demand honor? Because he gave honor to people. He respected people. If you respect your parents, only your children will respect you. Ain't nobody else going to respect you. If you respect your teachers, your students will respect you. If you respect people, people will respect you. If you're generous to your family will be generous to you. If you're generous to strangers, well, that's what you'll get back from strangers. So it's limited to how I show or I give people my qualities, how I respect people. Nonetheless, he says that nobody would dare to look up except for two. Who? Abu Bakr and Umar. And pretty interesting hadith. He says the Prophet would walk in, Abu Bakr and Umar would look up, وَيَتَبَسَّمَانِ إِلَيْهِ وَيَتَبَسَّمُ إِلَيْهِمَا. They too would smile at the Prophet, and the Prophet would smile back at them. Imagine that, right? Like, you know, it's like if you ever gone to like an NBA game or NFL, like, or any other big event, yo, LeBron touched me. He looked at me. He made eye contact. That's my entire life. Yo, I saw Justin Bieber, right? Like, he looked at, whatever it is, right? I don't even know who's out nowadays, right? I saw this, the celebrity saw me. Pinch me, is it real? The Prophet ﷺ was the great. The Sahaba say that when the Prophet would walk in, Abu Bakr and Umar would look up, they would smile at the Prophet would smile right back. I got you, right? That was that relationship. So the idea was the Prophet ﷺ, regardless of what you felt internally against him, no one could negate his beauty. And this is why in Mecca, when they started creating an entire shura against the Prophet ﷺ, they chose Mus'ab ibn Umair, a young man, to be a part of that council because he was also very beautiful. And they said, in order to attack a beautiful person, we need someone that has a similar level of beauty. And the Sahabas mentioned there was no one that looked like the Prophet more than Mus'ab ibn Umair radiyallahu anhu. That's his face. How about his hair? Where did his hair go to? Anyone know? Three lengths, okay, just quickly. Up to his earlobes, back of his neck, or to his shoulders. His shoulders were not, that was not a normal length. It wasn't a normal length only when he would travel. The Prophet never had uneven hair. Now, we're not going to speak about whether it's permissible or not permissible. We're talking about what he had and what he didn't have. He never had uneven hair. The Prophet ﷺ never went bald himself except for in the times of pilgrimage. But at the same time, we find narrations in which he encourages parents to make the children's to shave the children's hair for the sake of ilaj and for the sake of cure and protection. But generally he would never go bald. He kept it for pilgrimage. But the hair would be short. So he never had uneven hair, he never had bald hair except for pilgrimage, and he had those three levels. If you say you have long hair for sunnah, well that's like the, how about everything else? Right? Like, how about everything else? So you can't speak, we can't speak from two sides of our mouth. If we're doing it for sunnah, well, there's also other things we should be doing, right? I'm not saying you can't have long hair. I love long hair, right? The hardest thing for me to do in Hajj and Umrah, personally, is to cut my hair. Like that's the height of my spirituality. When the barber takes a shaver and he cuts my, like, ya Allah, that's my heart gone right there, right? But now it's easier because we've been, alhamdulillah, has given us the ability to go for Umrah a few times. We're like, forget about it. Who cares now? Let's go bald. I just mentioned I was in Pakistan. My teacher sees me after 2 years, and he looks at me and looks at my hair. It's like, cut your hair, man. I was like, what, man? I don't even have long hair. So generally, the idea is if you have long hair, you should be taking care of it, and it should look nice for men and for women. Whatever. Okay, let's go ahead. Yeah. Hands. How are the Prophet's hands? Quickly, we have 2 more minutes, I think. How are the Prophet? Anyone know the Prophet's hands? Yes. He had large hands. If it smack you, it would hurt. No, he wouldn't smack you, right? The Prophet's hands were large, but they were soft. And Salma says that I never touched hands. I've never touched any cloth as soft as the hands of the Prophet. They were so soft, right? Imagine you being the recipient of the Prophet shaking your hand. Right? The Prophet was shaking your hand. Right? And he would be the first one to do it. So the Prophet's hands were large, yet they were soft. How would he walk? Lastly, we'll stop at this. How would he walk? Go ahead. Bottom of his feet. What else? Fast. I mean, I hope he was walking with his feet. Like, what? Huh? What the? So that's good. That's good. So the Prophet. Anything else from sister side? Like he was walking down a slope, right? So an easy way to understand this is the Prophet. Two things. We'll talk about two things. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever he would walk, نَظْرُهُ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ, his sight was always down. And this is very important. Like Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah writes this, and in the sharah of his narration, the scholars mention, why would the Prophet look down and walk? Was he scared of sinning? Was he afraid? Just finish the adhan. Is it a Hanafi masjid? Like we can pray right away? Yeah. Okay. 5 minutes, 5 minutes. I stopped so we can repeat after the adhan, or else I'll just continue talking. So let's repeat after the adhan, inshallah. So why would the Prophet look down and walk? Right? Was he afraid of sinning? You know, if you go to someone and say, man, why are you always looking up and walking? Well, I mean, are you judging me? Are you judging me? You think I'm looking at haram? That's why I'm Habibi, the Prophet was ma'soom. He was sinless. He could never sin. He wasn't looking down and walking because he was afraid of sinning. He was looking down and walking because he was focused on where he wanted to go. If I look up and walk, I get distracted. You drive and you look around on the billboards, that's the source of distraction. And the most vital and important thing that we have is our mind. And every single thing in this world is trying to get a piece of it. You watch a video on YouTube, you have 7 ads. They all want a portion of your mind. You drive, you have billboards all over the place. So looking down and walking was not just because we're afraid of sinning, but it's because we're focused. And we don't want to look at people's stuff because we're focused. We know where we want to go. So the Prophet looking down and walking was a sign of him being focused. A and B. When you look around at what people have, again, you see what they have, it affects your heart. Look down and walk. Don't walk into a wall, but look down and walk because you're focused, you feel comfortable. But interestingly enough, like this defies logic. He was always looking down and walking, but he was not unaware when he was walking. When we're looking down and walking, 99% of the time is because we're sad. So shoulders are slouched. Shoulders were not slouched, shoulders were up, right? Looking down, not because his shoulders were down, because his head was down. His eyes, his head wasn't like this, right? Like his eyes, his نَظْرُهُ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ, his eyes were looking down. But he was not unaware. How do we know that? How do we know he wasn't unaware? Huh?
Walking fast, you know?
Not walking fast. He was the first person to say salam. Like we're walking down, like, hey, assalamu alaikum, how you doing, brother? Our way of avoiding someone is look down and walk. Right? I didn't even see you, brother. Like I didn't know you were there. So looking down and walking is a sign of humility, but at the same time it's a sign of a person that's focused. He would walk fast. He wouldn't walk slow. Like my teachers in our school, I still remember, if they would see someone walking slow, shoulders slouched, their feet dragging on the floor, like in Pakistan, not in America. They would come and they would hit you on your feet, right? Like, yo, walk faster, man. Like tap you, or they would hit you on your shoulder. They would tap you, not hard, right? So the idea is, let's be focused when you walk. Don't look at what people have. So what's left is the Prophet ﷺ also, the last thing in his face was he also had a lihya. وَلِحْيَتُهُ كَثَاثًا. Last thing. His beard was also thick. So this is, now I'll end off with saying this. Just because we can't do something doesn't mean we undermine the sunnah. If it's a sunnah, we respect people that do it. Just because I can't wear something doesn't mean I look down upon people that wear it. If we say we're non-judgmental, right? And this is important, right? I spoke about this in my Miftaah class recently as well. If we say we're non-judgmental, we don't judge. We shouldn't judge on either spectrum. If a person doesn't wear hijab, don't judge her. But if a person does wear hijab, don't judge her either. If a person chooses to wear a thobe, don't judge them. So let's be fair. I will speak about this for a little longer. Let's be fair in the way we look at people. And inshallah, tomorrow we'll speak a little bit more about the Shama. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.